And yeah, fade into Richard Harrison. And right off the bat, we have something unusual for IFD, which I'm sure you can recognize too, Ed. It's an opening sequence that required something out of them. In this case, actors, smoke, posing. And why it's unusual, I'm sure you know, but I'll just speak a little bit about it as well. They usually relied on credits that are rolled over the Hong Kong skyline, right? And then the movie started after that, or the movie started already underneath these credits. The exposition dump started already when we saw Godfrey Ho's name, so Richard Harrison's name. But the only other example I can think of that did something akin to this, where it was a themed opening, was Ninja Dragon.
That's the one I was going to mention, actually, which has music from Dagger of Kamui, an anime film.
Like that sounds almost obscure. Rather, like normally they just found, Miami Vice in this case. The theme song to Miami Vice, they probably was around, but that sounds almost obscure. But like I can't think of any other examples where they did like a themed opening like this, and I rather like it. Richard Harrison does not look like he's enjoying himself particularly, and it's obviously shot in the office or a hotel room, and you got the smoke machine going. But why not? And I gotta ask you, when you did Ninja of the Mission Force, did this ever cross your mind to open your episodes with posing like this, or you settled on the skyline?
Yeah, it was. I sort of. I wanted to do the skyline first after Ninja the Protector, but for season 2, I realized that was kind of a bad idea because no one would have any idea from the opening what kind of movie or what kind of show it was. And so for season 2, I went for a very, very, very short, very, very quick Cheetah Lee transforming into a ninja just to get the title out there. And that was about it, and get you right into the story. And speaking of getting right into the story.
Yeah, we're in Europe, Ed, because we got baguettes.
Yeah, France, because baguettes, obviously. This is something that we did kind of rip off for Ninja the Mission Force, seeing if stuff was hidden in baguettes.
So you used, I don't remember it off now. Was it actual baguettes, or you used some other food?
It was baguettes or something close enough.
Right on. It wasn't cheese by any chance. I remember cheese from your show. But
there was cheese as well. But no, we had a whole like searching through baked goods sequence.
And, to be honest here, as fun as this is, one can't really argue that Godfrey Ho is good at, creating a drug deal sequence and its tension. But as it jumps into action, one thing that happens in this one is something that's also fairly rare at IFD, is they did action scenes, but it was akin to an old Western where we never saw any blood or anything. But for this one, they rig up some scripts on the actors, and eventually we're going to see some acrobatics from the Asian stunt crew, or the Hong Kong stunt crew. So it's the guy who just fell over, like boom boom. That was a rather like quick, shocking like edit. Like it looked like a wire pull almost.
This is the cheapest Coliseum I've ever seen.
They often just found these backwoods locations in Hong Kong, and I think there was a remote. You can find them easily when you go to Hong Kong, of course, if you go to the new territories. And I think the advantage of going there is that the police is not going to come and bust you for not having a permit.
It's true, but you're telling me that this isn't Paris with all these mountains around?
Well, maybe Alphonse Beni, which we'll talk of, maybe he had the finances to fly the whole crew over to Paris. I'm sure. I would have expected, by the way, this movie to thoroughly riff on a famous Clint Eastwood movie, but it only chooses, I guess, a moment that's coming up here, which I'm sure you'll know, even though I didn't prepare you for this question. But what Clint Eastwood movie is Alphonse Beni gonna channel right now?
Dirty Harry.
And not like a variation of that dialogue. You think I fired 5 or 6 shots, punk?
It's a little bit different. It's like, did I fire 6 shots or 5 shots only? But that's a weird way of asking that question.
Yeah, and Alphonse Beni, I'm sure we have a little bit of opportunity to talk about him. And there's not a whole lot of things to say about Alphonse Beni, so I'll just go ahead and do it. Our Cameroon lead. He's not American or British or French. He's from Cameroon. And he said he met Godfrey Ho in Cannes or maybe Milan. And because Beni, here sitting in his wonderful red shirt, was a film distributor, he already released Asian films in his own country. He liked the IFD movies too, and he told Godfrey he wanted to be in one. And Benny was really the real producer of this movie. And presumably he had money, therefore invested in it too, and could star in it. And he does a decent job, considering these leads were sometimes very random and not engaged in the case of Richard Harrison. So I think he does all right in this movie. Or what do you think in general about Alphonse?
Oh yeah, no, I think he's better than most, I'd say. And honestly, if he put money into it, that probably explains why there's so much original footage.
Yeah, I hope that's the explanation, because this was a rare idea at IFD, super rare idea to just shoot maybe 80% of it themselves. I think that's fair. It's certainly not 50-50. But yeah, after this movie, him and Godfrey Ho made Top Mission, where they kept Joseph Lai out of the project, and eventually that movie was sold to Thomas Tang, who released it internationally. So that's the only instance of Godfrey Ho connecting to Filmark in a very unusual business transaction. That doesn't mean Thomas Tang is Godfrey Ho, or vice versa. Benny and Richard Harrison worked again on a movie titled Terror Force Commando, which I hope, it's a typical IFT title, that mixed the IFT style with an action movie from the Philippines. And even Spanish actor Romano Christoph, who was a very good friend of Richard Harrison's, played a villain in that movie, shot on location in Cameroon. And in Jesus Perez Molina's words, who helped out with his research, that movie, Terror Force Commando, looks like a sequel to Top Mission. And finally, Benny also teamed up with Bruce Le, one of the Bruce clones, in Cameroon Connection as well. Movie I have, but only dubbed in French, so I haven't scanned through it. And as Jesus said about that movie, every time I tried to watch it, I got so bored I turned it off.
That's amazing.
So there you are. That's Alphonse Beni for you. And
we're talking over the world's longest avian commercial.
Dude, I mean that's not really a sponsorship, but yeah, if you're thirsty, then there's Evian water. Maybe were you affected? Like, I'm thirsty myself. Like, honey, do we have any Evian?
You're right, exactly. Remember, avian spelled backwards is naive.
Yeah, and I think sometime here we heard the name of Rudolph, the drug kingpin, and that's another ding 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 IFD tradition, coming up with stupid names for characters that gonna be hard characters, and the prior supposedly hard characters, and the prior interrogation scene is in terms of drama, because the character breaks down. Stop it, I can't take it anymore, my wife. It's not high drama, and certainly not David Mamet either.
His wife, his kids, and his 70-year-old grandmother, as they make pains to stress.
Here's Alphonse Beni and Pierre Tremblay. Fairly frequent face in these movies, not in lead roles, but he, among other things, you might have seen him in Inferno Thunderbolt, where he kills Richard Harris's wife, with a chain. I think it's a very brutal murder of her. And
that's the one with the dog, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing that I dig about, one of the things I dig about this film is that it's like the parade of IFD stars. Every scene, it's somebody new. You're like, oh, I remember this guy. He was in all of these other movies. Then rarely do they all come together for one.
Shame though they didn't have or could include, because they had the room for footage. It would have been amazing if we had Bruce Barron and Mike Abbott as well on place. Wow!
Yeah. Bruce Barron, I don't think came in until after Richard Harrison. He was the replacement Richard Harrison.
Exactly. I think the timeline is that way. You're very right. But yeah, I mean, good at least.
Hey, girl.
Good at least, by the way, this is straightforward plotting. It's not muddled through these exposition dumps that are poorly recorded afterwards. It is easy to pick up on this plot. Or what do you think, Ed, if we're going to provide some review while watching the wonderful Stewart Smith here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's okay, this guy, he betrays this guy, and we've got to get our drugs over here, and this guy wants to stop him, and this guy wants to revenge his wife. It's it's maybe 3 different plots, but they're all so straightforward that it's hard to miss them. Also, these, by the way, are the headbands that I have, the skull one and the black ones with the little white ninja on them.
Mine is it's a nin and then a ninja in the middle and then ja, so it's actually head of the or the upper body of a ninja. And any plot could feature in these movies ninjas, even though the source movie would have been a horror or melodrama, but the source movie is action, and therefore the whole product is a little bit of a B-action genre piece with straightforward plotting, and not original plotting and not very well conceived and executed necessarily, but it feels more easy. I think it's easily accessible rather than just throwing Diamond Ninja Force onto an unsuspecting viewer. I think this is among the top three like items you could present to someone who's curious about IFD rather than the absolutely mad Ninja Commandments and Robo Vampire mixture. But yeah,
it's true. I tend to want to hold off because it's so much fun if you recognize everybody from the other films. On the other hand, as you say, it's the more sensible of the group.
And yeah, by the way, like we will touch on this a little bit through the show here, but Stewart Smith, who's in this movie, as we saw before, I mean, he's wonderful, and I love the fact that he it works. The more Australian he is in these movies, the more it works because his dialogue is so elongated because of his Australian accent and his mouth acting. That man acted with his mouth,
like, and he dubs himself. So that's you get the absolute most that you could of Stewart Smith.
And I can't even do it justice like his accents. I'm not even gonna try a whole lot, but yeah, I mean it's still 11 minutes in. We're still having this IFD's footage, no trace of the Taiwanese movie, and it's not boring despite being exceptionally bad and flat at the same time. Like, it isn't boring. Like, this relationship is stiff and flat dialogue galore, and there's no chemistry between these two, obviously. And when you see her die in a little bit and him crying over her,
spoilers.
Well, if you, for heaven's sake, if you must have watched the movie before, so it's not the usual suspects of 70s. So, like,
right,
Kaiser's also is.
You know, the what I found interesting is that they even bother to kind of link some of the scenes together where Alphonse Beni's character, he checks his watch and it's broken, and it's like, oh, I wish I had a new watch, except I love this one. And then in another like scene and a half, we get his wife with a watch for him for their anniversary. And it's like, oh, you didn't have to, like, it's a nice little touch.
And, you know, Godfrey Ho, after his IFD period, made actual movies. He'd made actual movies before, so there's no... He can construct a decently told narrative, but if you watch a movie like Princess Madam, which is his Moon Lee vehicle, you can see the evidence of a decent, like, narrative director there. So he's... he's executing the beats, and that's...
Speaking of executing...
Yeah, indeed.
Ninjas.
And at some point here, Stewart Smith says, "You're a traitor. Traitors must die," but in an Australian accent. Traitor.
Traitors must die.
Let me just ask you something. Like, you see the transformation into Alvin into a ninja. You know, you get the eventually here you get the smoke, and then the boom, and then the spin that transforms him into a ninja, and it looks simple. But how hard was it to get the spinning transformation right in Ninja the Mission Force so that it looked IFD-ish?
Not that hard, really, because you're just doing a straight cut, and it's. I
mean, you weren't too anal about it. Like, no, the angle must be 2 degrees to make it really like to the right to make it really IFD. Like, you weren't anal about it that way.
No. I mean, the thing is that it's a pretty straightforward kind of thing to do. You can do the jump spin, in which case, you just it's like they jump and spin. You cut to a weird angle of them jumping and spinning in the ninja costume, and then you cut to them landing. Or you do the sort of Alphonse Beni sort of just spin transformation, and you mostly keep the camera still. You do a jump cut, and you try to make that edit where the spin kind of is at the same spot.
And by the way, before we get to it, I might as well ask this question as well. Have you ever thought of, like, how IFD justified not only having ninjas in colorful outfits, but this glitter vest on top of it all, like we're going to see Alphonse Beni wear in a minute here?
I can't even imagine. I mean, yeah, I've definitely wondered, but I haven't the foggiest idea where that comes from. At least with the headbands, you think, okay, well, they're ISO 9000 compliant ninjas, but for this, I don't know. Also, I love that ninja is just a thing that you are that's not questioned by anybody. No one's like, oh my God, what is this guy? Or like, holy cow, you're a ninja. He's just like, oh, you're a ninja too. I happen to also be a ninja. And the audience is expected to understand like it's like hitman or assassin or gunfighter or proficient with spoons. You're just that thing also.
Yeah, I don't think they ever focused on it extensively as such. It just was, and I think that's because they were making such micro movies normally, like just 10 minutes of it.
Oh yeah.
Then it was no use, like having a history lesson before before every movie. And but since they amped it up, it's not like they made Enter the Ninja style ninja suits or anything like, and really were transparent with what their source was. Like they amped it up with this design. I think they just bothered with they want to color in and energy, and they certainly can. I mean, judging can inject. It's judging by that fight scene. It's short, but again, the Hong Kong style energy and editing is present, even though in very small bursts. In this one, we don't get epic fight scenes, despite having a longer IFD stretch of action and narrative here. But we get more of them, I suppose, rather than one or two or three at max or tops. So yeah, at least like the Hong Kong energy is there a little bit.
I'm dying, but what is that thing that you're wearing? I don't even understand. I also like that she's like, they got me, and he's like, hang on, I'll get an ambulance, and she's like, no, there's not enough time, but I'll talk with you for like 4.5 minutes. Like, the ambulance could have been here by now, honey. No, don't leave.
I think the blood is cleared up pretty fine. It's like she's not internally bleeding that much anymore, judging by that little smudge of red. So
I think she's just using this to get out of that vacation.
but does it throughout flow, or is the IFD footage problematic at some points for you because there's so much of it, or what do you think in general about that?
No, I mean, I think it really is one of their absolute best. I mean, it's complete cheeseball, but it works.
Yeah, I mean, 90 minutes is not hard for this one. It's just like the shock has worn off, obviously, that, oh my god, there's more footage. Oh my god, it's not stopping. It's continuing. Woo! Like, that was the easiest part of the first watch to just get, because you were constantly, like, waiting for it. Like, where's the source movie? Is there a source movie? Oh my god, this is, what a stupid movie. Like, I like it. Yeah, so I don't know, while we are on the subject of we saw Stewart Smith a little while, so why don't you at least start the bio of Stewart Smith, because god damn it, does he deserve a mention, the malfactor, our Australian villain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the fun thing is he was one of the rare cases of a Caucasian IFD actor being roped into these movies and actually having a good time doing it. So yes, Stewart Smith was born in England, but grew up in Sydney, Australia. Originally went to law school while working in the import-export business, but school didn't quite work out, which led to Smith joining a local community that had started a government-sponsored film and acting school. Originally given the job of interviewing local surfers for on-screen segments, the performer bug in Smith grew and his aspirations became larger.
By the way, let me just interrupt you. Watched Pierre Tremblay read his lines off screen. Like, his eyes go to cue cards, definitely. Like,
oh wow!
Like, not all the time, but you can see him like blah 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 blah, right, blah 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 blah, right, blah 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 blah. And he's nailed to that table too. He never gets he never stands up. So obviously they shot his scene right after the other one, and Alphonse Beni still got the same shirt and all of that.
Well, most people don't know that he's wearing no pants. That's why.
But right on, let's get back to Stewart Smith and the performing bug. Yeah.
Sure. Well, despite his agent advising him not to, Smith decided to try his luck in Hong Kong. Rumor had it that producers were looking for Western actors to star in their films, so armed with a little bit of knowledge of Cantonese, the IFD films were soon graced by this performer and his interesting performance style. According to an interview Smith did with Nanarland.com, Godfrey Ho's favorite turn of phrase on set was, "I can't see you acting, more acting." After working on a couple of IFD films, Godfrey eventually approached Smith about dubbing his own films. This led to more work, a better paycheck, a good working relationship with Godfrey Ho and IFD, as well as an extended career within Hong Kong, appearing in a few movies for Thomas Tang's Filmmark, as well as a blink and you'll miss him appearance in the Brandon Lee vehicle Legacy of Rage, Blood Fight alongside Simon Yan and Yasukai Kurata, and Ringo Lam's Undeclared War in 1990. As of last note, Smith was working in Thailand as a financial advisor, a long way from his mugging days as the young on-screen punk or dastardly ninja foe, in the words of Josh, who helped out with this bio.